Hi, welcome to the HR Minister, the podcast where leadership meets faith and where human resources becomes a ministry of care, purpose, and vision. Thanks for joining our show today on the HR Minister. And if what we're sharing is connecting with you, would you please follow, share, and like our content? And if you have a question, or even if you have an idea that you'd like us to talk about, or if you would like to be interviewed on this show, please reach out to me at info@humanresources911.org or visit our website, hr911.org. Whether you're an HR professional, a team leader, a business owner, or a career-minded believer navigating the workplace, you're in the right place. So today we're unpacking a powerful topic that often gets reduced to a formality: performance reviews. But what if I told you that they could be a divine tool for realignment, growth, and transformation? So let's dive into the topic. So why performance reviews matter more than we think. So reviews have definitely been boxed into something that people dread, right? Both employees and managers alike. In fact, there are even those advocating basically for the removal of the process altogether. And for the employee, this process can either inspire or sadly just downright break people if it's not handled with grace. So reviews are often rushed, awkward, or treated like an annual HR obligation instead of a leadership relationship tool. But in reality, when they're done right, performance reviews can reaffirm alignment with the organization's mission. It builds trust between leaders and teams. It helps set clear goals for growth. It recognizes our contributions and also addresses our blind spots. And reviews can also lay the groundwork for compensation and advancement. So they're not just checkboxes, they are check-ins with purpose. And as Proverbs 27:17 reminds us, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. A thoughtful review is sharpening. It's stewardship. It's leadership in action. So what we should be doing is evaluating when we have to do these performance reviews, is evaluating the whole person over the whole year. So I want to talk to leaders for just a moment. So your job in the performance review really isn't just to tally tasks, kind of quickly go through and, put some scores in place. It really is to see the full journey your team member has taken. So to help yourself kind of stay on task and stay true to the intent of what a performance review is, you could just ask yourself a few questions. Are you evaluating the entire year or just the last few weeks? Are you giving grace where needed, but also being truthful? Are you separating personality from performance? Are we just remembering the person's quirks, or are we truly seeing their contributions? And remember, the review should not be a popularity contest, despite what the politics may be telling you. And it shouldn't hinge on one good or bad moment that someone had. You want to celebrate the consistency, the growth, and the unseen faithfulness of your employee. So let's also talk about another tougher topic. We want to check our biases. We want to make sure that we're leading with integrity. So bias is one of the biggest threats to fair performance reviews. And it's also one of the areas where there could be, it could impact culture, it could impact morale, and in some cases, it could also become a legal issue. So as leaders, we must be vigilant against these common traps. And in many organizations, human resources professionals will train their leaders against these biases. And, we all have them, frankly. We all have some form of them. We carry stereotypes and bias with us based off of our experiences in life, kind of where we've come from, where we're going to. So it's just kind of a natural thing that we all carry. But what we can do about them is just be educated about what they are and to be aware of them whenever they show up in ourselves and make sure that we are truly leading this process with integrity. So here's a few areas just to watch out for. There's something called a halo horn effect. And the halo effect specifically would be letting one positive trait that your employee has overshadow real areas of growth. So maybe they're just like super outgoing, but there's some other areas that they're not so great at. But you just kind of go, wow, this person's amazing. Horn effect is kind of the reverse of that. it would be letting like one mistake define an entire year. And then there's recency bias, and that would be focusing too heavily on what just happened. So, for example, maybe someone had made some mistakes over the last month, but the previous 9 to 10 months, they were amazing. They were always on time. They turned in all of the projects correctly. They perhaps, saved some money for the organization. So watch out for that recency bias. And then there's also leniency or strictness bias. That's pretty self-explanatory, but they are, of course, the opposite of each other. But that would be rating everyone the same out of either fear or favoritism. And then the similarity bias, that would be favoring those who are just like you. So for your super outgoing, you like outgoing people, you want to guard yourself against rating them as amazing. And the folks that are more introverted, maybe they're not your cup of tea, but you want to guard yourself against, rating them lower because they don't have the big personalities in the organization. So these biases create false evaluations, and they could foster resentment or even confusion in your teams. So we want to make sure we're committing to honest, equitable, and purposeful evaluations. So the next part I want to talk to you about is documentation. It is, as a leader, it's really your protection. And as an employee, it's really your promise. And it's something a bit less glamorous, but it's very, very important, right? You'll probably hear an HR person say documentation, documentation, documentation. It's so, so important. So documenting your performance review conversations is really about protecting your organization from legal and compliance risks. It also helps ensure clarity for the employee. Also, it's really important to be tracking progress and growth over time. So providing a paper trail for decisions around promotions, raises, or even terminations is extremely important. And every review should include these areas. It should include key achievements, some areas for development. And for both of these, you want to have some concrete examples, whether they're good, whether they're bad, because it really helps connect with the person that's on the receiving end of this review and of this feedback. If it's left vague, it just kind of leaves people wondering and guessing and taking their mind to places that's just not very constructive. You'll also want to have goals for the next period. And also talk about and write down any commitments made by either party. So as probably every HR person has ever told you, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. And remember, employees deserve that record of growth and feedback too. It's not just paperwork. It really is about their professional legacy, and it's part of the personnel file. So the next part would be the connection between reviews and compensation. And of course, here's where the stakes rise. Your review often directly affects merit increases, bonuses, promotions or reassignments, and the eligibility for stretch opportunities. So if your evaluation isn't fair, complete, or documented, you could risk withholding a reward from someone who really earned it, or rewarding someone unfairly, which affects morale and legal equity. So don't let bias, discomfort, or oversight block someone's blessing. That review doesn't stay in the workplace. Remember, it affects their grocery bill. It affects their family. It affects their peace of mind. It affects their ability to basically plan for the future. So handle reviews with grace, truth, and the stewardship that you have as a leader. All right, let's get into some of the more meat. So this next section is a bit more deeper into these performance reviews. So let's talk about performance improvement and development plans. So those are two sides of growth. Every review conversation should offer a pathway forward. I think that's really, really important to remember that. It should be, a conversation about here's where we're at, and let's talk about here's where potentially we can go. And it should be a place of hope. And so performance improvement plan is a formal opportunity for an employee to address performance gaps. It should be structured, time-bound, and specific. And the last step before basically further performance evaluations, before further disciplinary action, But it should also be a chance for redemption, a place and a chance for someone to turn things around if they're not quite going in the direction that they need to be going for the organization or for the team. And a professional development plan is a growth map for employees doing well and maybe ready for more. It would be an investment in skills, leadership potential, and long term retention. It should be motivating and empowering when tailored to the employee's aspirations. And there are some that say a professional development plan really has no place with a performance review. It would be something that's either done perhaps afterwards or kind of alongside the one-on-one conversations. But both plans should be grounded in real performance data, and it should be fueled by your faith in their potential. And I'll be really honest with you, both of these, well, particularly the improvement plan, those can be tough. If, for example, if your employee really doesn't connect with your feedback, if they believe that you're wrong, if they don't see things the same way, it really can be a bit of a conflict conversation. So whenever you have to, go through this process with someone, I would really recommend that you partner with your leader, with your human resources professional, potentially also with legal counsel, just to make sure that you are, providing the correct documentation, that everyone agrees that this is the place that you're at with the employee, and just make sure that everything is buttoned up correctly for any sort of legal exposures. And then also plan ahead of time what that conversation looks like with your employee so that it is a positive conversation. It's honest. It gives them real feedback, but it also gives them a pathway forward. I hope that's connecting with you. So then the next part is the ugly truth. It's behind, kind of a look behind the curtain. So next we're going to be digging into a topic that makes even the most seasoned professionals shift in their seats a bit. Because what happens behind closed doors during the review season isn't always pretty. So while performance reviews can be nerve-wracking for the employees, they're often just as uncomfortable for the leaders. Why? Because leaders are not just rating performance, they're likely also making decisions that could impact careers, compensation, development, and sometimes retention. So behind the curtain, so to speak, senior leaders are discussing high potential talent. They're making succession plans and visibility. And in some rooms, people are informally ranked. Promotions are sometimes predetermined. And yes, relationships and politics can sometimes shape the outcomes more than the documentation. And that's just a reality. As well, through some of these ranking discussions or high potential discussions, should there be a turn in the organizational performance, and if the company has to make some tougher decisions over the next year that potentially would result in, a building closure or a layoff or, things like that, these types of conversations will come into play. So as an employee, we really want to make sure that we're, shining, all the time that we're at work, that we're really giving our best foot forward. And when we need help, that we ask for help. Because otherwise, if, the relationships turn sour or if there's conflict, that's just becomes just difficult conversations and difficult circumstances for everyone. So here are some tips for leaders. Here's how you evaluate ethically and prepare properly. You want to start early. Don't wing it. Don't wing the performance review. And you want to anchor all of your comments and all of your ratings to objective evidence. Remember, watch out for those biases. Document throughout the year. Have a system in place, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, a notebook. Make notes throughout the year from your one-on-one meetings, from any sort of coachings that you might, be giving your employee, any celebrations, any successes. Document that throughout the year, and then it won't be so difficult at review time to remember what all happened over the past 12 months. Separate potential from performance. Be honest, but be kind. Use the review to support and not just, sort. And another double check is you could just ask yourself, would I want this feedback? Is it connecting with someone in the way that I would want it to connect with them? And so here's a part for employees. that might be getting a review. You want to own your review with confidence. Don't let performance reviews just happen to you. Be an active and purposeful participant. If you're asked to complete a self-review, for example, or if you're requested to be at a meeting to discuss your performance, walk in prepared or come in prepared. Have a list of your accomplishments. Have some evidence of your goals that you met or you exceeded. Feel free to provide some feedback for your manager. What are you needing more of? What are you needing less of? How can they assist you? Feel free to ask some questions about your future, but definitely come in prepared because you're an important part of the performance review process. And then here's a few other tips. Practice self-awareness. 95% of people claim to be self-aware, according to a survey by Harvard, but only 15% of people actually are. That's a pretty wide gap, right? And one of the places that it does show up in is in performance reviews. So the employee, for example, will rate themselves, maybe all of the top scores, while the leader may approach the process with more balanced scoring. And that can lead to awkward conversations and potentially conflict. So all of this to say, just be honest about your own assessments and celebrate your wins, but also ask for helps in areas that you're developing in. And remember, our careers are a journey after all. So in those conversations, ask what growth looks like, ask how you can lead, ask for help where needed, and volunteer for things that you might be interested in. So as we start wrapping up this topic, and so whether you're giving or receiving feedback, lead with grace, lead with courage, and lead like it matters, because it does. So if this message stirred something in you, if it convicted you, if it gave you the language to lead better, share it. And please subscribe, follow, share, all the social media things. And feel free to connect with me at hr911.org. And remember, reviews aren't about rating people. It's about raising people. So go forth and lead well. You've been listening to the HR Minister, where leadership meets faith and putting people first. As I always say, one life, your life. So be good to yourselves and take good care of you. Until next time.